When Angela Lansbury passed away last month at the age of 96, I felt a tremendous sense of loss. What a remarkable woman, and what a remarkable career. She was one of the last ties to classic Hollywood we had, Lansbury getting her start at MGM with roles in 1944's Gaslight and 1945's The Picture of Dorian Gray. She would go on to appear as the devilish villain in The Manchurian Candidate, as the apprentice witch in Bedknobs and Broomsticks, and as Mrs. Potts in Beauty and the Beast. She was the lead of one of the most successful television series of all time, Murder, She Wrote, which aired from 1984 to 1996, and so it might be a surprise for you to learn that although she certainly won lots of major trophies throughout her career, including 5 Tony Awards, Angela Lansbury never won a competitive Emmy, and she never won a competitive Academy Award. Why did this happen? Who was her main competition the 3 times she received an Oscar nomination? Trust me, we'll get into it. If you're a fan of Angela Lansbury, and really, who isn't, then you've come to the right place. Sit back, relax. It's time for Angela Lansbury and the elusive Oscar. First, let's start at the beginning. Angela Lansbury was born in central London on October 16, 1925, to Mother Moyna and Father Edgar. Lansbury's father died when she was 9, and she retreated into playing characters as a coping mechanism. Throughout the 1930s, she became a self-professed movie maniac who visited the cinema all the time, and in 1940, she began studying acting at the Webber Douglas School of Singing and Dramatic Art in Kensington, West London. Soon after, Lansbury received a scholarship to study in New York City at the Fegan School of Drama and Radio, where she appeared in multiple stage productions. At a party hosted by her mother, Lansbury met John Van Druten, who had recently co-written the screenplay for a feature film called Gaslight, and he decided Lansbury would be perfect for the role of Nancy Oliver, a conniving Cockney maid. She was accepted for the part, she obtained an agent, and she was signed a 7-year contract with MGM, starting at $500 a week. Gaslight received somewhat mixed reviews at the time, but its stature has absolutely grown throughout the decades. The story of a woman named Paula, who returns to her London home where her aunt was once murdered, and discovers her husband has an intense interest in the place that ultimately drives Paula to insanity. Angela Lansbury couldn't have asked for a better debut vehicle. George Cukor, her director, Ingrid Bergman, the leading lady, and Joseph Cotten, a co-star. This is one of those excellent 1940s crime mystery films dripping with atmosphere and tension. And a then 17-year-old Lansbury is divine as the maid Nancy, wise beyond her years, delicious in her line delivery. This is an outstanding debut performance of the highest order, and the Academy took notice.
She's a tartar, isn't she?
What do you mean by that?
Oh, you know, strict like. I'm not going to sleep in the same room with her. See the way she looked at me?
Most of Gaslight's awards that season were for Ingrid Bergman, who for her lead performance won the Golden Globe, National Board of Review Award, and Academy Award for Best Actress. The film received 7 Oscar nominations total, including Best Screenplay, Best Cinematography, and Best Picture. George Cukor was overlooked for director, surprisingly enough, but the film also won an Oscar for Best Art Direction Interior Decoration, and 2 more actors from the film got in, Charles Boyer for Best Actor, and Angela Lansbury for Best Supporting Actress. I would argue Lansbury had a shot at winning this Oscar, given that there didn't look to be a frontrunner in the category, no major lock of any kind. The winner, Ethel Barrymore, won on her first nomination for the drama None But the Lonely Heart, which wasn't even nominated for Best Picture. However, Barrymore had also been around a lot longer, appearing in theater, radio, and film going all the way back to the 1910s, and the Barrymore family was also a kind of dynasty. The other nominees for Best Supporting Actress that year were Aline McMahon for Dragon Seed, Agnes Moorehead for Mrs. Parkington, and Jennifer Jones for Since You Went Away. I would argue McMahon and Moorehead didn't have much of a shot, since both of their movies only received 2 Oscar nods each, but Jones would have been in the mix for a win, since her film Since You Went Away received a whopping 9 nominations, including Best Picture, and Jones had just won Lead Actress the year before for The Song of Bernadette. Although the Best Supporting Actress winner in early 1945 could have gone in a few different directions, the category ultimately did have some considerable competition. I think the main reason Angela Lansbury came up short that first time around was that she was so new to the industry, few voters knowing her name, while Ethel Barrymore was a far more famous figure. Regardless, Lansbury wasn't going to have to wait very long for her second try at Oscar. Her next nomination, once again in the supporting actress category, came along just 1 year later. Any actor, especially a younger one, would be extremely lucky to receive an Oscar nomination for their first movie. How many actors have received a second nomination in just their second year in film? Angela Lansbury appeared in two 1945 movies following Gaslight. The first was National Velvet, which introduced the world to Elizabeth Taylor and featured Lansbury as Edwina, the oldest child in the Brown family. Lansbury's other movie of 1945, The Picture of Dorian Gray, would net her a second Oscar nod. This chilling fantasy horror film, based on the Oscar Wilde novel, is about a young man who maintains his youthful beauty while the portrait he keeps of himself continues to age. Lansbury plays Sybil, a singer the main character Dorian Gray, played by Hurd Hatfield, falls in love with.
What did the music mean to you?
I don't know. It is full of emotion, but it's not happy.
No, it's not happy.
Why was he unhappy?
In just a single year, Lansbury had significantly matured on screen and utilized more of her talents in this wickedly entertaining film. Now, horror is not the kind of genre that normally gets attention come Oscar time. That goes for back then, and that certainly goes for now, but there's a wonderful craftsmanship and singular vision that went into The Picture of Dorian Gray, writer-director Albert Lewin, always making the characters and their relationships complex and engaging. Lansbury is a bright light in the movie, so warm in her presence, making the viewer think maybe she'll be able to change Dorian Gray for the better, even though deep down, we know that's not going to happen. The next award season, Angela Lansbury was the clear standout from the film because she won the Golden Globe Award for Best Supporting Actress, and soon thereafter she received her second Oscar nomination. The Picture of Dorian Gray was nominated for the International Critics Award at the Venice Film Festival, and it won the Oscar for Best Cinematography Black and White, but judging by her Golden Globe win and her Oscar nomination the year before for Gaslight, one would think Lansbury had a pretty good shot at finally winning her first Academy Award. But alas, I would argue Best Supporting Actress in early 1946 was even more competitive than the year before. Two shining performances for Mildred Pierce in the category, Eve Arden and Anne Blythe, plus Joan Loring for The Corn is Green. Arden and Blythe might have split their votes for the Joan Crawford film, and Loring might have suffered due to the mixed reaction overall to the Bette Davis film. If Lansbury's second feature, National Velvet, had opened at the end of 1944, when it actually premiered in New York City, instead of January 1945, she might have won the Oscar for The Picture of Dorian Gray. But unfortunately, National Velvet is indeed a 1945 release, and thus Anne Revere beat out Lansbury for the Best Supporting Actress Academy Award. Like Barrymore, Revere was much older than Lansbury, with lots more credits behind her, as well as an Oscar nomination 2 years before for The Song of Bernadette. This might have been the case where the Academy preferred to reward a performance in the more wholesome family drama, National Velvet, rather than the more eerie horror film, The Picture of Dorian Gray. But the Academy also clearly loved Lansbury at the time, so given her participation in National Velvet as well, you'd think they might have given her the gold trophy over Anne Revere. No matter what happened with that second loss, Angela Lansbury had no reason to feel like a loser. Before age 21, she had already received 2 Oscar nominations and had her entire career ahead of her. She would win an Academy Award soon after The Picture of Dorian Gray, right? Right? Strangely, although she continued working hard in films for many years after that, her third Oscar nomination didn't come until 1963, a crazy 17 years later. So what did she do in between?
I ran into problems with being cast in movies that I had no interest whatsoever in being in. But because I was under contract, I couldn't fight them on it, and I tried.
From 1946 to 1953, she appeared in 13 more movies, the most famous probably being The Harvey Girls, a Western musical starring Judy Garland, Frank Capra's State of the Union, starring Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn, and the 1948 adaptation of The Three Musketeers, starring Lana Turner and Gene Kelly. She continued doing solid work, but many of her films during this time were met with mixed or negative reviews, and she was never given leading roles that could have upped her star power. As Lansbury talked about in later interviews, she always saw herself more as a character actor rather than a movie star, and this mentality allowed her to play all kinds of roles in all kinds of genres, crossing film, television, and theater. She indeed started a run in TV in the 1950s, appearing on such programs as Lux Video Theater, Celebrity Playhouse, and Studio 57. Her next significant film credits came in 1958 with The Long Hot Summer, starring Paul Newman and Joanne Woodward, and The Reluctant Debutante, starring Rex Harrison and directed by Vincent Minnelli. In 1961, she starred in Blue Hawaii opposite Elvis Presley, and then in 1962, she appeared in two of her very best films. The first is All Fall Down, an underrated drama directed by John Frankenheimer that features a superb ensemble cast: Warren Beatty, Carl Malden, Eva Marie Saint. It's a compelling hidden gem I recommend you seek out, even if it did only win a single award, the National Board of Review Prize for Best Supporting Actress, for, you guessed it, Angela Lansbury. She won the prize that year for two performances, All Fall Down, and what is likely her most acclaimed film and performance ever, The Manchurian Candidate, also directed by John Frankenheimer.
I shall force someone to take the body away from him. Then Johnny will really hit those microphones and those cameras with blood all over him, fighting off anyone who tries to help him, defending America even if it means his own death, rallying a nation of television viewers into hysteria to sweep us up into the White House with powers that will make martial law seem like anarchy.
You can barely see her name on the poster, one that puts the names Frank Sinatra, Lawrence Harvey, and Janet Leigh in much bigger letters, but if there's one performance you remember from this movie, it's absolutely Angela Lansbury in her most villainous, conniving, and chilling turn ever as Mrs. Eleanor Shaw, mother to Sergeant Raymond Shaw, played by Harvey. Lansbury, shockingly, was only 3 years older than Harvey. She agreed to appear in the film after reading the novel, which she described as one of the most exciting political books I ever read, the story of an American POW in the Korean War who is brainwashed as an assassin for an international communist conspiracy. The Manchurian Candidate was released in October 1962 at the height of the US-Soviet hostility during the Cuban Missile Crisis. The reviews of the film were mostly stellar, with many pointing to the powerful against-type performance by Lansbury.
I wouldn't say it was the best, but it's certainly the most outstanding and astonishing film that I was ever connected with. And from an audience standpoint, I think it is a unique piece of work.
She is ruthless, menacing, her voice sounds different, and everything physically is different too. Her hair, her clothes, the way she carries herself. If Angela Lansbury thought of herself as a character actress, this was the role that proved it. So unlike anything she'd ever played before.
But now we have come almost to the end. One last step. And then when I take power, they will be pulled down and ground into dirt for what they did to you.
And although the film received strong reviews, the one element singled out come awards time, once again, was Lansbury. The film received 2 Golden Globe Award nominations in early 1963 for Best Director John Frankenheimer and Best Supporting Actress Angela Lansbury. Like for The Picture of Dorian Gray, many years before, Lansbury won the Golden Globe for The Manchurian Candidate. And then at the Oscars, the film surprisingly only made it into 2 categories, Supporting Actress for Lansbury and Film Editing. Clearly the Academy hadn't fallen in love with the movie, maybe its dark elements didn't sit well with them, and so they turned to more crowd-pleasing films like To Kill a Mockingbird and the Best Picture winner that year, Lawrence of Arabia. But Lansbury's performance couldn't be ignored, and she made it into the Supporting Actress Oscar category with Excellent Company. The young Mary Badham received a nomination for her wonderful turn as Scout in To Kill a Mockingbird. Shirley Knight got her second nod in 3 years for her acclaimed performance in Sweet Bird of Youth. Thelma Ritter might have been a top contender for Birdman of Alcatraz, given that this was her 6th Oscar nomination without ever having a win. Yes, get ready for Thelma Ritter and the elusive Oscar in the months to come. But no, it was Patty Duke who won the Supporting Actress trophy that year for her celebrated performance in The Miracle Worker, a film that also won Joan Crawford an Oscar for Best Actor. Anne Bancroft. It was Anne Bancroft who won. So once again, for the 3rd time, Angela Lansbury's name was not called from the stage, and remarkably, despite decades more of excellent film performances, The Manchurian Candidate was her final time going for that Oscar Gold in a competitive category. So what came next for Lansbury? During the next 6 decades, she appeared in more than 40 movies. Here are the most noteworthy titles and performances. Bedknobs and Broomsticks was my introduction to Angela Lansbury as a kid, the classic fantasy comedy, my favorite live-action Disney film of the 1970s. Her performance as Apprentice Witch Miss Price earned Lansbury a Golden Globe nomination for Best Actress in a Motion Picture Musical or Comedy, and it proved how adept she could be at singing and dancing. This is a wonderful movie for all ages. I'm so happy is on her impressive resume, and I think she should have gotten more Oscar consideration for it. I mean, if Julie Andrews can win Best Actress for Mary Poppins, why can't Lansbury be nominated for Bedknobs and Broomsticks? Something to ponder. Death on the Nile was the star-studded follow-up to Murder on the Orient Express. Such stars in the piece as Bette Davis, Mia Farrow, David Niven, and Maggie Smith. The Oscar-winning costumes are amazing throughout, and Lansbury is fantastic as Mrs. Salome Otterborn, a role that earned her a BAFTA Award nomination for Best Supporting Actress.
Oh, the crime passionnel, the primitive instinct to kill, so closely allied to the sex instinct.
Beauty and the Beast, the first ever animated feature to earn an Oscar nomination for Best Picture, was the first movie featuring Lansbury I saw on the big screen, and her voice is such a crucial component to this, my all-time favorite Disney animated film.
Told you she was pretty, Mama, didn't I?
All right, Chip, now that'll do. Slowly now, don't spill.
She is delightful as Mrs. Potts, and her rendition of the song Beauty and the Beast always brings tears to my eyes. Mary Poppins returns as the Balloon Lady.
Hello, we would like some of your very finest balloons, please.
That you shall have, but choose carefully, my dearie ducks. Many have chosen the wrong balloon.
I remember her cameo at the end bringing such a giant smile to my face, a playfulness in her acting still there after all these years. What excites me so much about the career of Angela Lansbury is that there's still so much more to discover. That begins, of course, in the world of television, with her landmark 12-season, 264-episode-long series, Murder, She Wrote, which I have still never seen, and which earned for Lansbury an astonishing 12 consecutive Emmy nominations for her entire run of the show.
Oh, now, wait a minute, Eve. I seem to recall that this house has some connection with the Revolutionary War. I mean, didn't George Washington sleep here once?
As amateur sleuth and professional writer Jessica Fletcher, Lansbury was given what is clearly the role of her lifetime, although it shocks me that she never won an Emmy for the show, and that she never won any Emmy in her long career, despite 18 nominations total. She fared better when it came to awards in the world of theater, where she won more Tony Awards than she lost. She achieved 6 Tony Awards in her career for Mame, Dear World, Gypsy, Sweeney Todd, The Demon of Fleet Street, and Blythe's Spirit, along with a Lifetime Achievement Award in 2022.
Who knew? Who knew at this time in my life that I should be presented with this lovely, lovely award? I feel deeply grateful. I can't believe that I'm standing here.
She won Drama Desk Awards, a Laurence Olivier Award, lots more Golden Globe Awards, BAFTA and SAG Lifetime Achievement Awards, the Kennedy Center Honors. I mean, the list goes on. And I know I've talked throughout much of this video about how she never won an Academy Award, and that's not entirely true. Yes, she might not have heard her name called on any one of those 3 Oscar nominations she received for Gaslight, The Picture of Dorian Gray, and The Manchurian Candidate, but in 2013, yes indeed, Angela Lansbury finally received a much-deserved honorary Academy Award for her spectacular career in cinema. Emma Thompson, Jeffrey Rush, and Robert Osborne paid tribute to her at the Governor's Awards ceremony, and Lansbury accepted her Oscar in person, so many famous faces looking on. Her speech, which lasted about 6 minutes, is a beauty. Here's a sample.
you know, you can't imagine how happy and proud, indeed I feel really undeserving of this gorgeous golden chap. And I want to thank the Governor's honorary Oscar from the Academy tonight, and to be here in the company of my beloved family and friends, instead of sitting shivering with hope and then disappointment in Grauman's Chinese theater in the 1940s and 60s. Yeah, sharing this wonderful occasion with me tonight are my twin brothers, Edgar and Bruce Lansbury, who traveled with me and our mother, Moyna, to this great country as evacuees from England in 1940, and my sons, Anthony and David, and my darling daughter, Deirdre, and my wonderful grandchildren, Peter, Catherine, and Ian.
So Angela Lansbury did take home the elusive Oscar once and for all. For 80 years, Lansbury poured her heart and soul into a profession she loved, and from what I've read, seen, and heard, she was always kind and generous every step of the way. What an incredible human being. What an extraordinary legacy. Angela Lansbury, you were one of a kind. There will never be another artist quite like you. Thank you for sharing your gift with us. Thank you for making such a significant impact in the worlds of theater, television, and film. Angela Lansbury, 1925 to 2022. From the bottom of our hearts, we love you, and we're really going to miss you.
Make a little magic, that is what it's all about.